Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Mile 22, which is the fourth collaboration between Peter Berg, director, and Mark Wahlberg, star. And I took my mom to see this because she really likes Mark Wahlberg and she loves action movies. And before the actual review started coming out, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. It's not a real story kind of thing like Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg have been doing. And I appreciate Peter Berg as a director. Not the greatest movie. It doesn't always work. There's certain things that, and I'll talk about it. But the story, I think it's a very interesting story of Team Overwatch, which is like the tagline is Part 1 Diplomacy, or Step 1 Diplomacy, Step 2 Military. This is Step 3, and like this group trying to extract this man out of a southeastern Asian city. I felt like it's a very interesting story and interesting backstory for this team and could make for an interesting series of films. And there are moments where this is really tense and suspenseful, and how the camera work is used. There's one thing in particular where there's going to be an explosion and you know it's coming, and then it pulls back out to a shot from like overhead, and you're waiting and waiting to see where the explosion's going to happen. Stuff like that. And it was very imaginative, very creative, and very interesting use of camera work. And stuff like that I really appreciated. And honestly, Mark Wahlberg's very charming and really sells what he's supposed to be doing in this film. And he's somebody, it's like kind of like The Accountant, where he has some sensory issues, or like he has something wrong with him. And it wasn't great that you made jokes about like, oh my god, what does he have, or he just be an asshole kind of thing. That was a little iffy with the dialogue at certain moments, but like, it's interesting how the person dealing with this kind of issue is put into situations like this of high stress. But like, it's a very interesting performance, and it's a very interesting character to follow. And Iko Uwais, don't know how to say your name, I'm sorry, from The Raid is in this, and his physicality and the stunts that he do are really impressive, and I think he was a good addition to this. And Jacques Chauffet, I hope that's how you say your last name, sir. It does a really good job with the cinematography. As I mentioned a shot earlier, they do an interesting mix of drone cam and webcam and regular camera work, and mixing all that together to make a very interesting dynamic experience watching this film. And Jeff Russo's score I did really like, and honestly was decently memorable for an action score, as I watched RoboCop last night. And not that memorable, not like Terminator memorable, but I think a really good score. And the biggest thing I loved about this film was there's potential. And there's a potential for a very interesting series that they could create out of these characters. And there's so many working parts that could have been amazing. But that's about the positives of the film. And these are the things that didn't really work for me, that made this not something that I would recommend for people to go out to see. Peter Berg honestly didn't do the greatest job of directing this film. The action is super overly edited. You can't see what the hell's going on when there's hand-to-hand combat, and it's hiding some really impressive stunt work by the actor from The Raid, and that's really disappointing. And honestly, the editing is so choppy and so quick that it actually is hard to watch at moments. It's a bit of sensory overload, and it made it uncomfortable for me. And Leah Carpenter's screenplay, like, the dialogue is really bad, and it's just like, how many times can you use a curse word in this movie? And it's just obnoxious. It's like, it's overbearing. It's just like, did you really have to curse that much? It's to the point where it doesn't feel natural, and doesn't feel like somebody would actually talk like that. And honestly, like, a lot of the characters are really unlikable, and it's kind of like, why do I care? Or like, some of the supporting cast is very wooden, Ronda Rousey, and it's just like, it's hard to connect with them or really care about them. And like John Malkovich has a couple of zingers, but like basically is really underutilized, and he's basically just there to talk like this and be snooty and then sometimes get angry, and it's just like, okay. And it's just a lot of that. There's a lot of positives, there's a lot of potential, but when it really came into practice, the action really didn't work, the characters weren't really likable, the dialogue, the editing just didn't really work as well as I would have liked, which is disappointing. This film is disappointing to me. Like, it was fine watching for the hour and 35 minutes with my mom. She really enjoyed it, and I was fine watching it. I just have higher standards of action at this point in the world where we have John Wicks. It's kind of hard to be okay with such choppily edited action at this point. But honestly, if you just want something to go and watch for an hour and 30 minutes that's suspenseful and intense, go watch this. If you want anything more than that, you're not going to get much more than that, so this will probably disappoint you too. But those are my thoughts, and thank you as always for tuning in to your Wasteland Reviewer.